All right. Well, welcome everybody. This is one of our mini episodes. We're kind of checking in here in the new year. We said we'd see you next year, and we are kind of taking our time with our 100th episode. So we aren't going to get that. We're probably not going to get that out in January. I think we're taking January off to reflect on the big choices we had to make for our 5 movies.
It's a big project. And so, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you know, in our last episode, we did promise our next episode would be our 100th episode. So that's not what this is. This is just a mini episode. So we're sorry about that. So hopefully you don't hold that too much against us, or before all the hate mail kind of pours in.
Oh, gosh.
We just need to explain ourselves. We kind of need to say why.
Cancel culture mob's going to be coming for us.
Right.
Coming for our heads.
And we would deserve it. I would be angry too. Believe me, I would be angry too. You make a promise, and then you just don't deliver.
Right.
You know. But this was such a big episode, 100 episodes.
We couldn't do it flippantly.
We just need more time.
We couldn't rush it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got our movies. We're in the process of kind of doing some rewatching, and
I'm doing a lot of whittling, and I think you're doing some whittling as well. Of not necessarily
metaphorical
whittling of wood, metaphorical whittling, narrowing down.
Although I do my best whittling while I'm actually whittling. I mean, metaphorically, it's been the focus is metaphorical whittling, but to aid that process, I've been doing literal whittling as well.
Right. Well, when you've got whittling on the mind, it's whittling all the way, all across the board.
All around,
really. All around. So maybe for those of us, if you didn't catch our last episode, we should probably recap what the plan is for the 100th episode. We've kind of landed on the idea of these being mine and Ryan's defining movies is what we're going to kind of call it. So if you've been listening to this podcast for a long time, if you've been listening 100 episodes along, we've never really taken the time to really talk about what are the movies that kind of define who we are as the hosts of this show. And so again, we're going to pick 5 each, 5 of my movies, 5 of Ryan's movies, and we're just going to go through and talk about what these movies mean to us, how they do define us, and how they have basically become what we almost think of when we think of movies. When we talk about movies, they inform so much of what we bring to this podcast.
It'll be interesting too, because I don't know if either of us have actually put our favorite movies on this list.
No, it's different than favorite movies. This is not necessarily what I would say is, I've kind of had my movies that I would say if someone asked, what's your favorite movies? And, as I've been doing so much whittling, and you've been doing so much whittling, it's, we actually already know what our movies are. We've shared them with each other in sealed envelopes.
We had a local accounting firm handle
right.
the handoff.
But yeah, I think with both of us, these are not necessarily our favorite movies. They really are the defining movies. Right. You can't really you can't even really explain it. It's just kind of something that comes from the gut, But what we really wanted... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think we were going to go in the same direction here. We really want to hear from people what their 5 movies would be. We told people at the end of the last episode, you can define it how you want. We've already gotten a couple calls, and I think those listeners have defined it how they wanted. And so if we would love to hear other people's 5, and maybe a little bit about why they chose those, or what gut feelings went into that.
I think this would be a great way to kind of celebrate the 100th episode, not just being sort of our celebration, but your celebration as well, as you've listened. And we'd love to be able to even put that in the episode. I think it would be a great way to kind of shape the episode, to talk about the movies that define us, the movies that define you. So don't be shy. A lot of people, I think, get maybe nervous about the idea of, sharing that kind of stuff and having it be on the podcast, but it's just going to be a big celebration, I think. And so I really would love to hear you out there listening to this. What are the movies that you would say define who you are? Not the movies that are even necessarily the best, or the ones that you think are like the greatest movies everyone needs to see. They're just the movies that make you who you are.
We've all got them.
There's a lot of different ways that you can share that. If you're going to call in and leave a voicemail, the best way to do that is to just call our number. The number is 847-306-9532. I didn't even need to look that up. We're getting, that's 100 episodes in. We can do that. If you prefer a more superb audio quality. Some people prefer to, use the voice messaging app on their phone, or if they have their own microphone, record a nice little MP3 file and send that to us via email. Our email address is feedback@canwestillbefriends.net.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that it's okay if you don't feel like leaving an audio message or voice message. If you'd rather write it out, we'll read it. We'd love to read those on the air as well.
We're big readers.
On the air. Do they say that in podcasting world even?
Yeah, I don't know what else you would say.
During recording. We will read that during recording.
During recording, yeah.
But yeah, send those to the same place, feedback@canwestillbefriends.net. And of course, we've got the social media outlets. Ryan, you want to run through those real quick?
Well, we've got facebook.com. You find Can We Still Be Friends podcast. And then on Instagram, we are Can We Still Be Friends pod. So we drop the cast.
Yes,
just
right.
to be slimmer, a little cooler. And yeah, you could comment on one of our posts or just message us there. And let us know. And if you can't think of 5, that's fine. Think of one movie that defines you, or a movie that comes to mind.
Or, honestly, anything else you feel like sharing about this podcast, if it has meant anything to you, if you've enjoyed it.
Sure.
It's just always nice to hear that as well. So anything you want to share would just be most appreciated. It'll just make the celebration all that more fun.
So I think that's everything we need to say about that upcoming episode. But let's also do a little check-in with what we've been watching. I know for both of us, the end of the year is always the time where we start catching up on movies that came out in the past year and looking ahead to Oscar season. Although some of the ones that I would like to see are still theater only. But
right, same here. Yeah, it's definitely catch-up season for me. And I don't mean that as in Heinz ketchup. I mean that as in catching up. So
I was going to say, we're switching gears. I didn't know this was a culinary podcast all of a sudden. Right. Thanks for clarifying.
No, not catsup season. This is definitely catch-up season. So.
Yeah.
Anyways, seriously speaking, though, Ryan, do you want to? I mean, I know we still have huge gaps in our watching from 2021, but do you want to share maybe what's something that you've really dug from the last year that you'd recommend to people?
Well, we talked beforehand. We aren't really going to say what our favorites are because we have so many gaps. But I do want to talk about one of my favorites, which I haven't watched recently, and that was Summer of Soul.
Oh, yeah. Great movie.
The documentary on Hulu, right?
Yes.
That Questlove directed. Just one of the most joyful and moving and educational documentaries I've ever seen. And it's just a complete blast. I did just want to plug that one as one of my favorites of the year. But recently I've seen The Power of the Dog on Netflix, which is getting a lot of attention. And I liked it. I wasn't as rapturous as a lot of people. I think you liked it maybe a little bit more than me, but I did really like it. And
I was rather rapturous.
We had a conversation last night that made me a little bit more leaning towards rapturous towards it a little bit more. But also I watched a movie that I really enjoyed, which is a strange word to put for this movie, but the movie Zola is just a really original, wild movie that is based on a Twitter thread from a few years ago, and the story is just crazy and true, and the filmmaking is really impressive and propulsive and energetic in a way that not a lot of movies are. I think it feels very much like the future of filmmaking.
Wow. That is one of my blind spots I need to catch up with still, and I'm definitely planning on doing, because I've heard really nothing but great things from everyone who's seen that movie. So
yeah, and I didn't even really expect to like it as much as I did, but it just sucked me and Kelsey in. We were both just kind of glued to the TV. And then The Green Knight I saw recently, which is one of those that I found to be very impressive, but I don't think I enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed even Zola, which is hard to say. Like, is Zola a better movie than The Green Knight? I'm not here to judge that, but those are the two that I think I watched most recently.
Well, those are all great recommendations. At least the ones that I've seen that I know that I would definitely recommend as well. I love that Summer of Soul is kind of just on top of just being a great concert documentary, like if you just want to hear some great music, it's almost like this historical artifact that's been preserved now. Like this is stuff that hasn't been seen. In fact, I remember there's a scene in there. Isn't there some scene where there's someone who was there, but it's almost like they didn't believe it actually happened.
Yeah, because it had disappeared from history.
Because it had disappeared from history, and they were just so wowed that like, oh, I wasn't going crazy. Like this was actually something that did happen. You know, I loved that documentary as well. The movies that I'll plug a lot of the same ones you did. For me, like I would say, kind of my favorites so far of the year have been The Green Knight and Power of the Dog. Both those movies just really blew me away. I think that with both those movies, even though everyone who had seen it kind of told you it's not going to be what you expect, it's going to be a kind of weird movie.
Yeah.
Even if you know that, you go into those movies and you're still like, oh yeah, I did not expect that.
Yeah.
And like, that is not something that, you know, and I just love movie experiences like that. And I think maybe Green Knight, I was a little bit more along for the ride than it sounds like maybe you were. But
you know how it is as a parent watching a movie after the kids go to bed. If it's not, right. That's what made Zola stand out, was it kept me awake for the duration.
Yeah. And there's those movies too, where for whatever reason they click so well with you that they're just easy to get into, you know? But yeah, if you haven't seen Green Knight, David Lowery is, to me, becoming one of our most sort of like, I guess, kind of visionary filmmakers, I feel like, is kind of growing into that. I feel like every movie I see of his, I like a little bit more than the previous movie.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm seeing him grow as a filmmaker, and I really hope for that one it gets a little bit of attention, hopefully at least for like cinematography.
Yeah, or costumes.
It is just it just has a texture to it. Andrew Droz, I don't know if I'm saying this right, Palermo is the cinematographer for that, and I just really thought it stood out in that movie. Power of the Dog, I thought was great. I will recommend, there's a WTF podcast interview with Benedict Cumberbatch, where him and Mark Maron get really deep into what the movie kind of meant for both of them. And it's interesting. They actually get into kind of a little bit of a fight with each other. Mark Maron kind of cuts into the interview and says to skip ahead if you don't want spoilers, because the conversation was so good that he didn't want to cut it, but it definitely gets into spoiler territory. So after you watch it, I think Mark Maron and Benedict Cumberbatch really get to the heart of what is conflicting and sort of unresolved about the character that Benedict Cumberbatch plays. So I'll just kind of highlight that along with Power of the Dog.
Yeah, I'll have to check it. I'm downloading that podcast episode right now. And I also should say, I didn't mention, Janusz Bravo is the director of Zola. So if I'm going to talk about, like, that's the future of filmmaking, but then not credit her, say her name.
Good call. Is this her first movie? Feature?
I think she has one feature before this, but actually right now on the Criterion Channel, they have her 3 short films.
Oh, cool. Okay.
That you can see.
And then, other ones that I would say that I really love this year that I hope everybody catches up with is, I was a little hesitant to watch it, but I watched Pig and really loved that movie.
Yeah.
Nicolas Cage, man, he's just one of those guys that like you almost take him for granted because they put out so much. Some of it's better than others. And then he just goes and pulls out this performance in Pig. And you're just like, man, that guy, he really can. Yeah. He's just got it on the screen.
I mean, talk about a movie that doesn't go where you expect it to either.
Oh yeah.
It takes like 3 or 4 left turns.
Yes.
That you don't expect, but they all inform what comes later.
And I don't want to, I definitely don't want to get into spoiler territory here, but I really appreciated the direction it did go at the end. Like, it definitely sets itself up to look like it's going to be some kind of showdown, and it's not the kind of showdown you expect.
Well, it sets, like, at the very beginning, it's like, is this going to be like a Kelly Reichardt, like just really quiet in the woods kind of movie.
Yeah, like almost like
is this going to be a fight club? And then is this going to be nobody? And then what is this going to be? Like it could be so many different things, and what it ends up being is better than any of that.
I heard somebody, and I don't remember. I think it was on Letterboxd. I don't remember who it was. They somehow made a comparison to The Old Man and the Sea. Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea. And the more I thought about that, the more I could kind of see the comparison there. And even in the sort of economy of the movie, like it's a short movie, gets to the point. And anyways, I highly recommend Pig, which is on Hulu. If you haven't had a chance to see that one yet, I think it's worth your time.
Definitely.
And another one that I guess I can't say whether it's worth your time or not, but it was for me, is the full 8.5 hours of the Beatles Get Back documentary on Disney Plus, the Peter Jackson restoration of all that film that came from the Let It Be sessions and documentary. What he does with that, I think, and I guess it's debatable whether it's even really a film or not, but the reason I say, is it even really a movie? It's almost like a VR experience, like a virtual reality experience. Like everyone who sees it kind of says, it feels like you're in the room hanging out with the Beatles. And that's more than just the documentary footage.
It's the style of the...
It's what Peter Jackson did with that film, the way he restored it, didn't bring in the talking heads and all that kind of stuff. Like, the vision was, I want it to feel like you're hanging out with these guys. And I got to say, I mean, I really feel like he pulled it off. And I do have to say, I feel like it had to be that 8.5 hours long to pull it off. I kind of watched it over days. And every day it was kind of like, I'm just going to check in with my guys, see how that record's coming along. You know, like you would just drop in, because he had to give you kind of sometimes the boringness of the studio, the mundane aspect of the studio, to give you that feeling of total immersion in this project. So I loved that. I am a Beatles fan, so I do think that you might have to be. I don't know if you have to be or not, but just as a 2021 movie experience that's kind of unique to now, I would definitely recommend that.
Yeah.
I think we threw out quite a few, actually, more than I thought we would.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And still so many more that I want to see from 2021.
Totally.
So you can always let us know your favorite movie of 2021, and of course your 5 defining movies for yourself. We would love to hear all that. Obviously, you'll see it posted when we get the episode done and up, and we're really looking forward to recording to it, and we're looking forward to what you guys have to say about our 5 defining movies for each of us.
Thanks for listening to this little mini episode. And I think this 100th episode will probably be our February episode. So kind of look for it sometime next month. So that gives you some time to give us a phone call or message. So I guess, Happy New Year to everyone. We hope you all are doing well.
And we'll see you in February.
Yeah, sounds good. We'll see you then.